Haven't really done a story video in a long time. I feel like this is starting to become kind of like a ritual, where every time I do one, I say this because I go like a month or two without making one. With that being said, the last video I did, that was a storytime video, it's at like 89,000 views, the last fast food horror stories, topic, I guess. I don't know exactly if it was just because it was a little bit more relatable or what it was, but you know, that video just kind of took off when it comes down to these stories, of course. So thank you guys for that. I'm gonna follow it up today. And with that video, it was like 3 or 4 very specific stories from both of the jobs that I had. Today, I'm just gonna kind of focus in primarily on working at Little Caesars, because there was plenty of horror stories about that place. Even though it was significantly better than my first job, there were still obviously some problems and stuff like that. So I do want to thank all the channel members who give $5 a month to help support the channel and my content. They get to see these videos earlier than everybody else. So if you're one of these people who enjoys these storytime videos, I say this all the time, but I'm going to try and make more of these. But if you want to see these early for whatever reason, it helps your schedule and you want to see them early or whatever the deal is, and you also want to support the channel, you can, do so by hitting the join button down below and the become a channel member link in the description. Either or if you just want to continue to enjoy them without being a channel member and getting all the other perks, that's also completely fine. But yeah, today we're just going to be talking about working at Little Caesars, which I only worked there for a couple months. It wasn't like a couple year job or anything. I'm almost certain that if I worked there for several years, that we'd be making like 8 or 9 episodes in this little, I guess, mini-series. But I actually somewhat enjoyed this job when it came down to it. I didn't work like ridiculous hours or anything. And, I dealt with pretty much everything in the store just simply by ignoring the problem. Which I've come to realize is a very significant strategy in my pocketbook of tactics when it comes down to dealing with things that I just really don't want to deal with. Just ignore the problem, pretend it's not there. If it boils to a head or anything, it's on somebody else because, hey, I wasn't paying any attention to it. So with that being said, there was a lot of insane, stupid policies, coworkers, stuff like that, customers. Working in a job like that, it hits you from pretty much every angle. And working here really showed me that people who work in fast food simultaneously deserve almost no respect, but they also deserve a whole lot of respect. I shouldn't say that they all don't deserve any respect, because there's a lot of really great people who work in fast food. I'm just trying to be funny. But there are obviously in fast food a lot of people who are just losers. And I mean, that's just the way it is. That's how the world works, unfortunately. But of course, there's also a lot of really great people who, they do all kinds of stuff. Like I worked with a guy he worked like 2 different jobs, kind of on and off, and I can't remember what he did, dude, but it was cool. I'm not gonna lie. What he did was actually really cool, and he definitely made enough to not have to work here. I'm not necessarily sure why he was, but god damn, I can't remember what he did. But I remember when he told me, we had like a 3-hour-long conversation in the back of the store while working about that. But man, I wish I remembered that. That guy was actually really cool. But yeah, just the general rundown, man. It was a store that sold pizza. It's a Little Caesars. It's kind of what they do. So it just was a weird job, honestly. I mean, the biggest thing really about the place when it came down to the horror stories was just the customers. I mean, we talked, I think, 2 separate customers in the first video. They just were not usually the most clean, the most well-mannered, the most decent people in the world. I mean, the whole city is just a Rust Belt city in the midst of a drug and violent crime epidemic, so, average customer wasn't someone that I would necessarily associate with, especially in the area that it was in. I know I'm sounding judgmental as all get out, but I mean, if you walked a mile in my shoes, you'd understand. Like I said, I covered a little bit of this in my first video, but god, this made the job just so much worse. And it's not really something that I necessarily thought about too much before starting the job, because I figured that I would never have to deal with customers, because when I was hired, I was exclusively in the back of the store doing like dough press, okay? They never had me even working like up on the ovens, or that went my controller, but they never even had me like working on the ovens, which I guess is kind of in sight. But man, once I started working cash register, it just... I realized, the people are just so goddamn impatient. And that's the most insane part. It's like, this is literally the fastest you're going to get a pizza in the entire city. We, quote unquote, pride ourselves in literally just having pizza sitting in these microwave ovens, basically, just lukewarm enough for you to eat them. You come in and pay a pretty cheap fee for these pizzas, and then you leave. The whole process takes like 45 seconds. But these people think that we need to insert like a sensor that like once you come through the door, like it somehow transfers all the nutrients into your stomach and you become immediately full, and you like, it like reads your wallet and scans your card for you. It's insane. A lot of stupid people come into these places too, especially with a Little Caesars. You'd think that the process of ordering a meal from this place is so streamlined and basic that no human being, even one that I would say had zero brain, there's no reason that they should ever have trouble or worry. But I had a couple people come in who couldn't read, so we had to explain things to them. I don't know how you don't know how to, literally did not know how to read. I don't understand how you even get a driver's license, or, you know, how you even really survive in the modern world without being able to read, but apparently people do it, so it was just, oh my god. I mean, and the thing is it was the best position when it came down to the work, okay? Because when it came down to like the physical things, the only physical things you really have to do is like turn around, take the pizza out of the little oven. That's what they like to call it, not necessarily an oven, but you take the pizza out, or the breadsticks, or their pre-planned order out of there, you put it on the table for them, and then you literally hit a couple buttons on the register. They're all labeled, really easy to learn. You take their money and give them change, or, well, because most people use a debit or credit card, you just allow them to swipe, and that's pretty much the end of it. But another thing that you had to do was stock the little Caesar dips on the front of the like the registers and stuff. They have like 4 or 5 different sauces in this little thing. They're like 2 for $1. They're actually pretty decent. If you do eat Little Caesars, I do recommend that you try the dips. They're actually not bad. I actually prefer them to the cheese and the marinara or whatever, because I know how the cheese, and that's another thing. I didn't necessarily, like, I didn't think it was coming from the greatest thing. Like, I thought it would have came from like a can. The cheese sauce that like you get for breadsticks comes in a bag, okay? And that threw me for a real loop when I figured that out. It just seemed really weird, like cheese in a bag. Like, you know, I know Canada has milk in a bag, and that's like, it's impossible to fathom as an American, but wow, it was weird. When it came down to the coworkers, mostly decent. I mean, there were a few attractive women there that I would have liked to have had sex with. You know, however, that didn't necessarily work in my favor. Yeah, you win some, you lose some. I didn't win any in this situation. Kind of had a losing streak going on. However, I noticed that the people they did choose to sleep with were generally losers anyway. So, you know, I'd say I'm the one laughing at this point, because a couple of them got STDs, and you know, I'm kind of happy that I took that loss. But, I mean, just run-of-the-mill coworkers, I would say. You know, you got some decent ones, you got some completely awful ones. Yeah, it just, I didn't necessarily seek out to become friends with any of them. A couple of them I did become pretty decent associates with or whatnot. Realistically, I would say probably the truly worst part was just the atmosphere of the entire place. Like, the coworkers were fine, which I'll probably do a completely separate story about coworkers and stuff, because I have so many stories about coworkers. But, I mean, it just sucked. We were peddling cheap pizza in this confined little store. It was always 1,000 degrees due to all the ovens and just shit running, okay? And the fact that during rush hour in this place, there was 40 people holed up in the whole lobby. You know, the door was open, there was a line out the door. It's like 20 people in the back. It just, oh my god, it was always so ridiculously hot. Like, the work itself wasn't that bad when it came down to like the physical labor that it required. The worst it really got was like picking up like 40-pound boxes to restock the ingredients, which, I mean, even then, most normal people can hold 40 pounds of weight. That's not too bad, especially in a box with handles. You know, but if it weren't like 114 degrees at all times in this place, it would have been so much better. That was honestly the reason I liked working as the cashier. I mean, you avoided literally all the physical work in the back, all the really tedious stuff, and on top of that, it was way cooler in the front of the store where the door was constantly open, letting all that hot air out, and you weren't literally surrounded by ovens and stuff like that, and cooking pizzas, and yeah, it just... Wow, it was a lot better when it came to the temperature and stuff. I mean, the work did get really tedious, especially like dough pressing, because if you just sit there for 4 hours and you're like going into the walk-in freezer and you're pulling out the dough that they've been sitting in there, and you take it to the station and you're throwing it around in the flour to coat it, and then you're, pressing it and making sure that it's flattened out enough and stretching it and stuff, that way it can go down through the press. Then you send it down through this press twice to make sure it flattens. Then you take that and you put it in a pan. Well, first you got to put cornmeal in this pan, okay? And a lot of the times the pans are still pretty hot because they just came out of the oven and they've been maybe washed, but sometimes you didn't get them washed either, so they were still extremely hot and had grease in them and whatnot. And, you throw this shit in there, make sure it fits, and you just did that for hours. I mean, oh my god, dude, it got super tedious. I mean, it wasn't hard, it just, mentally wore you out, just knowing, they're paying me, $8.25 to do this all day. I mean, I was making $8 and some change to do this shit all summer. I didn't really want to be. Didn't necessarily help, but most of the work that I actually did was at the dough press. I worked here pretty much throughout the whole duration of my employment with this place. And even though it was really, tedious, like I said, it wasn't horrible because, pretty much, you were out of the way of customers. You didn't have to deal with them. It wasn't really all that hot because you were away from the ovens. And even if it was super hot back there, which it did get in the summer sometimes, it's 97 degrees outside sometimes in Ohio. And, that doesn't help the temperature regardless. They're not really running air conditioning because why would they? And you get to walk into the deep freezer, or I should say the walk-in, all the time, which is pretty good because it cools you off almost instantaneously walking in there. You don't really have to deal with other, co-workers and stuff while doing the dough press. They're all doing their own thing. You're kind of in your own little area. It's a good way to just kind of get away from all the hustle of up front, dealing with people at the cash registers and putting pizzas in and out of the ovens. It wasn't awful, I guess, but Jesus, it got tedious. Like I was just saying, towards the end of the experience, really, I got to work the register a little bit. They were training me, and then I finally completed training, and a couple days later, I was out of there. This is where I pretty much found, honestly, it was probably my overall favorite position in the store. But, my temper started to kind of get in my way. I almost walked out a couple times. And, it's hard to keep a good head on your shoulders sometimes, especially when 3 or 4 times a day you have a customer come in and threaten to jump you or kill you when you leave the restaurant over something as stupid as their order not being ready yet but being in the ovens. That has happened a couple times. One person literally threatened to kill me when I left my shift because he had ordered it was actual garlicky cheese bread. I can't remember what it was called. But, and it took 4 minutes to cook, okay? And it was still in the oven, okay? Because they apparently f***ed it up once it got caught in there and burned up or something. He threatened to kill me over a, $4 thing of bread. So, yeah, you had to deal with a lot of that, but, you knew they weren't going to do it. There's 90 cameras around the whole premises of the building. There's no way that someone's going to do that. Come on now, he doesn't know when I'm leaving. Honestly, if he's going to sit in the parking lot for 8 hours and wait for me to come out off my shift to kill me, Godspeed, okay? Because I work at Little Caesars. You were basically doing me a favor. Yeah, that kind of got in my way a little bit though, but the one thing that I really hated, okay, was closing. The worst part of this was just realizing how much food we just throw away. I don't just mean a few old pizzas that have been in the oven for 8 hours, okay? We literally would have to run through the whole stocked inventory about 30 minutes just before we closed, just because. So, I don't know if you're understanding. We'd have to prepare all these pizzas that had been made. We would take the dough, we'd put pizza sauce, pepperoni. It hadn't been cooked, but it was sitting on these racks, okay? They were waiting to be put through ovens. When people came in and demand was high, we'd put more through, things like that, right? So we had 40 of these full-sized pizzas, okay? We did it just in case. But we had to literally make every single one of these pizzas before we left. And we'd run them through these ovens, 40 of them, okay? It would take 30 minutes total because we only had one big oven, had 3 different racks on it or whatever. But we would literally take them, scrape them up out of the pan with a spatula and just toss them into the trash can. over and over again, okay? Every once in a while, if a manager was closing, we were allowed to have like a couple of them stay out. That way the closing staff could eat on them as we finished all the dishes. You know, we cleaned and mopped the floors. All the equipment got wiped down. We cleared the walk-in, you know, stacked chairs. Basically reset the store for opening tomorrow, okay? But we had like 7 or 8 employees closing pretty much at all times. And most of the employees were adults who had children. God, even at that time, like, I still lived with my parents, okay? Why? We had a whole family there, okay? I'm pretty sure they would have appreciated maybe taking a pizza or 2 home so we didn't have to worry about dinner, you know? Even though it was like 11 o'clock at night. I mean, sometimes we ate really late. We're throwing away all these pizzas while these people are literally struggling to actually feed their kids. I mean, I worked with a woman who had like 2 or 3 sons. She worked like 3 jobs, literally, to support herself and these kids, and we weren't allowed to take this food home. I mean, why? I understand that they're not just gonna be like, oh, hey, here's some free food, but because it's a business. But at the end of the day, the restaurant is closed. You're not going to sell this food. You're literally throwing it in the trash can, so you're not making any profit off of these materials, okay? You're literally throwing this money into the trash can. What is the harm in giving this food to the people who literally make the store function? I'm sure there's going to be some tight ass in the comments who types a 9-paragraph essay as to why I'm wrong and why Little Caesars is morally correct for not giving, you know, 6 $5 pizzas to the employees to make our lives a little bit less garbage, you know? And we had a huge homeless problem at this store too. Like, the homeless would literally, this is insane. I know it's going to be hard to believe. One time, the people doing a trash run got physically attacked by a group of homeless people with knives over discarded food, okay? From that time forward, okay, we had to have several people go out and keep watch while we took trash out, okay? That's just encouraging that problem even more. You know, it didn't make sense. They were not killing any birds with any stones. They were using the stones and throwing it in their own face. It didn't make sense. But I don't know. I don't run Little Caesars. It just got on my nerves. With that being said, closing just sucked altogether, honestly. I'd come in at like 7 p.m. The store's been open since like 9 a.m. And I'd get to clean the shit show that almost 12 hours worth of employees left throughout the day. It's also a great way for the company to hold you an extra 40 minutes because you don't get to leave until it's all finished. I mean, the whole staff stays. It just sucked a lot of donkey dong, man. Oh my god. I hated closing. There were a couple times that I closed that were actually extremely fun because we just kind of dicked off in the back. But, you know, that was towards the end, really, of it all. And I knew my time with the store was coming to a close quite soon. So I was just like, you know what? The company itself was just odd. I mean, I really do remember this Extra Most Bestest pizza. I think they still sell them. It was coming out, right? And we had an employee meeting an hour before work started. I didn't even work mornings because I was a minor, but I had to be here at like 8 a.m., and they acted like Steve Jobs just rose from the grave to announce the newest iPhone. It was insane. Like, this pizza was innovating and changing the game. They're like, it's going to have more pepperoni, it's going to have more cheese, but we also charge an extra $1. Like, the investors were all just going to show up in suits and like start clapping and like fucking whistling and cheering in the parking lot. It was insane. They started promoting the hell out of it. I mean, it was all over the boxes. It was all over the designs. We had a poster up in the front of the store. It was on the big sign out front. It was in commercials. It was all over the place. And we started selling these things like hotcakes compared to like regular food. I mean, they were flying out of the ovens when this whole thing first started, but they did this weird competition between all the stores, okay? Where one of the stores would get like a couple $50 Amazon cards for the employees in the store that sold the most pizzas in the market, okay? Or these Extra Most Bestest pizzas. Well, in our market, there's like 34 stores because it spans over like 5 counties, and there's like 4 actual cities with several locations of these stores, and we're already an underperforming location. And then everyone just went apeshit. Like, I thought everyone would kind of realize what was going on here, but everyone was just like freaking out. Like, they just thought this was like the greatest thing of all time. It was insane. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking like, why is everyone here excited? Like, we have 0 shot of winning this. Even if it was regular food, we would probably place in the bottom 10th percentile of any competition. I mean, we're not just going to go somehow like MJ flu game, you know, clutch up and drop 60 on these bitches in the playoffs. You know, it's not happening. It's 100% going to managers if we do win. So none of these employees cheering are going to win anything. If they did, they basically just, you know, worked so hard to give their managers $50. It was psychotic how they got this excited, you know? Needless to say, out of these 34 stores or whatever, we placed like 29th, so we just got stomped on and humiliated. You know, we got our numbers tripled by like middle of the cut stores. We just got demolished. I mean, I also remember that they were hyped because we were in the running to relocate to an old restaurant that had a drive-thru. It would have all this new equipment and whatnot. There would be sit-in dining. It would really help our store, possibly, when it came to sales and stuff. But to get it, we had to really bump up our sales. We had to really start selling more food because, like I said, we were already an underperforming location. We had to step up and actually prove that we were worth investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into our restaurant. Well, again, everyone just started losing their mind. Like, these people, they were acting like they just got nominated for a Grammy or something. Like, it was like a personal accomplishment and not some mega company just doing what they can to maximize profits and keep them distracted from doing anything else. Oh god, it's gonna have a drive-thru. This is gonna be awesome. Have you not noticed how insane and chaotic it just gets with walk-in? You know, the 50 people in the lobby like cussing us out? Can you imagine people walking in, using the drive-thru, okay, getting pizza? And then on top of that, things like DoorDash were only like a year away. Okay, they weren't really commonplace at this point. Maybe they were in larger markets and stuff, but not where we're from, okay? It would have just been chaos, okay? You'd have these people trying to throw themselves in the ovens to catch a break. But these other employees weren't even thinking about these things. They were just eating up what these managers said like cookies at grandma's. It was insane, dude. It was sad, too. Oh my god. Yeah. They had this awesome tendency, too, of sending people home for no reason, but not sending them home when it was necessary. One time I burned the absolute piss out of myself, man. I was trying to stack a bunch of hot pans to take back to be cleaned. It was a bad burn. It burned through pretty good. I had a huge raw spot on my arm. It scarred and everything for a long time. It just over a couple months ago actually returned to normal. And it's been almost 2 years since I've worked at this place. I was in a lot of pain, man. It wasn't a pinch. This was one of the most intense pains ever. It was like a constant, fierce, like, ache deep in my arm, but there was like an intense burning on the top of my skin. It sucked. Cold water didn't help. This bullshit medicine they put on didn't help. The only thing that ever did anything was actually flour getting in it because of dough press. I'll probably get a skin disease from having flour in my raw skin or something, but oh my god, it felt amazing at the time. So I went and told the manager because I have to, that's like part of their procedure, and he literally looks at me dead in the eyes and says, "What do you want me to do about it?" I don't know, dude. Probably what your procedure calls for, you know? The thing I have to know, but apparently you don't have to understand? Huh. Insane that I knew more about this place than a manager did, but yeah. However, when they didn't want to pay you, they just sent you home, okay? Like, 4 shifts in a row, I only worked like 2 hours because the business got slow and they didn't want to pay me to be there. But then I get a pretty decent burn and I'm back on the ovens in 10 minutes until the dough press a little while later. I didn't even mention that part. It totally didn't make sense. This was actually a pretty big reason why I left. They stopped scheduling me enough. I started working like 8 hours a week. You know, it was just stupid. The drama and the internal politics were just ridiculous. Most of the adults there had like a mental age, probably at half of their physical age. It was honestly incredible. I mean, I didn't make too many friends there. I had a couple buddies, one of which I almost got arrested in with him, and as part of another story time. It was a weird reunion meeting him all these years later and whatnot, but yeah, the drama was bad, man. People getting sent home over personal conflicts, mental breakdowns. It was just stupid. Like, I remember very distinctly one incident where a female coworker, she went in the bathroom in the back of the store, and she'd go in there for a while, but another dude accidentally walked in on her because he had just gotten there like 3 minutes after she went in, so he didn't know she was there, and the door's just junk anyway. You know, things happen. And apparently he saw her vagina. Breaking news. And apparently it was extremely hairy, because he just started telling everybody. Like, when he came back out, he just started telling everybody about how he just saw the hairiest monkey in his life. I was like, oh my god. I started laughing, I'm not gonna lie. I was the first one that he told. I was at the dish station, literally right by the door. You know, started laughing. She came out freaking out. You know, what did he say? What did he say? So, I mean, I wasn't snitching. I said I was talking with another coworker about some other stuff. But word eventually got back around, and shit, of course, hit the fan, because why wouldn't it? It seemed like everyone there just had beef, except for me and a couple others, because I only associated with like 6 people on the whole staff, honestly. It was stupid. These grown adults were just focused on these childish rivalries and whatnot. I don't know. I didn't like how people acted once they got promoted to being a manager. It happened a few times. They became unbearable. They got a few dollars and a raise and some shot calling capabilities, and it just turned them into tyranny. It was tyranny in that place after they got control. It was insane. They thought they ran the whole company. They thought they were the Illich family, and they stepped up and ran this whole conglomerate. It was insane. Didn't like answering the phone too much to take orders. Wasn't necessarily pleasant. You did, of course, get the people who called. They knew what they wanted before they called. They understand the process of actually, placing an order. But of course, not all the time was that the case. People would call the store, they'd try to scam us all the time, they'd call and complain about the food, and we'd tell them the same thing every time. And there was this one couple who I still remember their phone number because they called literally almost daily over like 3.5 months that I worked there, right? And we would tell them the same thing every time. Like, you have to come here with a receipt to show that you bought the food, and you have to still have some of the food in the box to return. They never had a receipt because they didn't ever buy pizza, okay? They never came in here and ordered, okay? They'd call, they'd have no concept on how a pizza place worked. They thought we were just the dumbest people of all time. It was ridiculous how far people would go for literally a $5 pizza, but people just never had a concept, it seemed like, with placing orders, okay? They couldn't conceive how asking for extra toppings would result in a pizza costing more. One time I got a call, they cussed me out because I told them we didn't have anchovies. It's a Little Caesars, We're not going to carry anchovies. We'd get phone calls from people asking to reserve these hot and ready pizzas, which are the pizzas you can just come in and buy and be out within like a minute. We couldn't do that because that just doesn't make sense, so we'd just offer them a fresh ordered pizza for literally the same price. It would take 6 minutes to cook a pizza fully. They would have a meltdown. They could not fathom waiting 6 minutes for fresh food at the same price. It was insane. It would probably take longer to get to the store than it would for these things to cook. But these people do vote for president. Like, we all know this, right? Overall, it was a weird experience, man. The job itself didn't suck too bad. Definitely could have paid more. Overall, I actually didn't even hate this job. I didn't envision living that lifestyle forever, but it wasn't the worst thing of all time. But obviously, there were some downsides. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video, you guys. Thank you for bearing with me for so long. This is going to be a really long episode. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on my channel. Follow me over on Twitter at @SubToptimus. I post memes, thoughts, and updates. It's a surefire way to get notifications of all my newest content. Join the Discord down below. Lots of great things going on over there. Thank you to my channel members for your $5 a month. Your support helps my channel tremendously. If you enjoy these story times, you want to see them earlier, whatnot, you can do so by hitting the join button down below or the become a channel member link in the description. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus making a pepperoni pizza and signing out.